Hi everyone, it's Amanda from the Quilting Bee in Masson, Ohio, and today I'm working on a Moda Love quilt. They've got a couple versions of this. They've got one where you use a layer cake and it finishes super big. I didn't want super big. So I'm doing the Moda Love Charm quilt today. Both patterns, by the way, are available for free on our website, so you can go online, download them. They're super quick. They're great because it's another half square triangle or 5 or 10 inch square, depending on which pattern. Goes together really fast and you get a really cute quilt out of it. So let's get started. I used our Floridora layer cake that we carry in the shop. It's from Ruby Star Society, super cute. Sort of has a retro kind of 60s, 70s, I don't know, feel. So I cut into that layer cake and took some 5-inch squares. Some of those 5-inch squares were paired up with my background, which is just a nice light sort of viney background, to make all of my half square triangles, and the rest are going to be used to create our quilt top. So why don't you join me, get your materials ready, find those patterns online, and I will share a couple of my tips and tricks, especially when it comes to matching up seams, and we'll have a quilt top in no time. So I have a couple places where I'm just sewing some background squares together. So I'm going to do that real quick and then just sort of check off what I have done so I can grab them as I assemble. My tips will come into play when we're trying to match up seams and get everything nice and neat. I'm a big fan of chain piecing, so I like to chain piece whenever I can.
So that's why I'm going to go ahead and stitch together my pairs that I can.
This seam guide that I have on here, by the way, is the Seam So Easy by Lori Holt. We carry them in the shop. It comes with stickies, so you can attach it to your sewing machine. But if you have to change your bobbin out, those stickies might lose their stick. So what Mom and I do is just use a piece of masking tape so we can easily lift it up, change our bobbin, and then keep going. Now, when it comes to pressing, Mom and I both like to set the seam. I'm using my big iron and a small pressing mat, so sorry. My setting isn't on like full blast steam, but I like to set, and then you can just nicely press it open. So we just set that seam, and then press it open. If you had alternating colors, you want to press to your dark side. So you want to make sure the piece that you're lifting is your darker piece. This is background, so it doesn't matter. But that way it automatically sets that seam to your dark side. So as I was saying, if you're pressing a light and a dark, if you set your seam and then have your dark on top, that will automatically set your seam to the dark side. So just starting with my top row, I need 4 half square triangles. I already have my 2 ends sewn, and I want some varieties. So actually the first 3 that I pick up are kind of fun. So maybe I'll do that one, that one. I don't want 2 of the same print. It's just a me thing. So yeah, I'm going to do those 4. So just paying attention to how your grid goes, you're just going to sew those together. So I think I can get into that combination. So that is going to be my first row. I will show you how I'm going to make sure that my two seams here match up so I don't end up with one starting up high and one low, which will look wonky. Now, when we are matching seams, so some people will say, you know, you just want to, you can feel it. You can feel if you have your seams together. I don't trust just my touch. So I actually line it up to where I think it belongs. Make sure everything is lined up. I actually peel it back straight so I can ensure I'm happy with where those are going to intersect. And then I pin in those seam allowances to make sure they are going to stay put. And you can even, I don't pin right to the edge here, I pin back a bit so I can still double check that that is going to meet where I want it to meet. So I'm going to do these as well and then go stitch. Now you can see I had not trimmed my dog ears off of all these half square triangles yet. So before I press these, I'm going to do that now, just to eliminate that extra bulk. And I just line my ruler up along my edge and nip those off. I used my strip tube ruler junior to trim up my half square triangles, which means that I do not trim my dog ears yet. I kind of like having my extra points to work with when I'm seaming things together. So you find what your personal preference is. And as I like to say, you do you. So there you have happy little points meeting. We all make mistakes, even those of us who make videos. I wasn't paying attention to how I needed to sew these together, and I did the wrong side. So I'm gonna rip. And redo these. If I haven't shown you this already, maybe I'll do this real quick. When I'm using my seam ripper, I get in here, start about the third stitch in. You can start to pull that apart. And then if you just hold it, it just slides right through. So there we have this order. Our happy little points meeting, leaving still a 1/4 inch seam allowance that we want to make sure we don't lose as we attach our rows. So now I can take my two backgrounds and attach them to either end, and I'll have my first row done. Then I will attach these two together, again making sure my seams match up like I showed you. So again, just peeling this back to make sure those match nicely. Grab a pin. Stitch to attach. Now, when I'm working on something that is doing a row by row, I like to construct my rows as I go. You can do whatever makes you happy, but that's what I'm going to do. So just like when I was seaming my half square triangles together, I'm going to lay my two sides together and just line up my seams first by feel and then by looking at each of them. I like to start in the middle, work my way out, see if I need any wiggle room. I almost always need wiggle room, so don't worry if you do. Now, we have some points that are going to be meeting. When I get close, I'm going to stitch so that I can see where my seams are meeting right here to ensure that I don't accidentally sneak into that seam allowance. I want to get pretty close to this edge so I don't lose any points. So with my first 2 rows sewn together, I am pretty happy with how all of my intersections came together. So I'm just going to keep going row by row.